Hello and welcome to this bite-sized lecture on signposting in academic writing. By the end of this short presentation, you should be in a position to understand why signposting matters in your writing, the different types of signposting you can use, and we will end with an illustration from my own work into how I've used signposting effectively in published research. So by the end of the lecture, you should be in a really strong position to start to implement effective, workable signposting that communicates the direction of your writing very, very clearly for your reader. And that will get you a lot of marks. Before we begin the lecture, I want to reflect on the 3 reasons why I think it's important you listen to this lecture. The first is that it's been compiled by an academic writer with 25 years of experience, publishing dozens of research monographs, textbooks, book chapters, and journal articles in leading international peer-reviewed journals. So, in short, I know what I'm doing and how to communicate to academic audiences. Secondly, it's more personal to you. Learning about effective signposting will help you get marks at all sorts of university level assignments, from short essays up to long dissertations and beyond. Good signposting is a hallmark of academic writing at all levels. So whether you're an undergraduate or a postgraduate student, you will learn something useful from this lecture. And thirdly, the way that you learn about signposting will help empower you to own your writing and take control of it. And therefore, in sum, by listening to this lecture, you should put yourself in a much better position to succeed and maximise the marks you can get from the dedicated efforts you already put into your university studies. So on the agenda today are 2 things. First of all, we'll ask, well, why should we signpost? What is it about signposting that makes it an important component of academic writing? The take home there is that it's about providing your reader with the direction of travel you're taking in a particular piece of work, whether it's shorter like an essay or longer like a dissertation. In the second part, we'll look at how to signpost. That part will introduce the 3 different types of signposting, and then I'll show you a practical illustration of how academics use signposting to show their reader the way through different segments of their writing. So by the end, you should be in a position to think critically and practically about how to incorporate effective signposting into your own writing. In their excellent book on good essay writing, Peter Redman and Wendy Maples say the following of signposting. Why do we signpost? Well, they say that the use of signposting recaps the major points and helps the reader to orient her or himself within the argument. That issue of orientation is absolutely key, and I will unpack that a little bit more on the next slide and explain what we mean. In the think bubble at the bottom of this slide, you'll see some words there on effective signposting as a product of clear argument and structure. You can only do effective signposting if you have both of those things in your essay already. There is no point signposting no argument, and if you don't have a structure, you can't signpost because there isn't anything to signpost. So signposting will often be something that you work in at different editorial stages and at different drafts. It's not something that will come in a first draft. It may take 4, 5, 6 or even more drafts. Now, often academic essays are written to quite tight deadlines, but to give you an indication of how academics approach it, in my own writing, articles I ended up having published and books the same would end up going through 50, 60 or 70 drafts. That's not always practical for you folks. However, if you're going through 4, 5 or 6 drafts, you will be in a position to include more effective signposting in that iterative editorial process. To develop Redmond and Maples' definition, the signpost in effect operates like a SatNav for your reader. When you set out on a journey, particularly one you haven't done before, SatNavs are absolutely vital in showing you where to go, how to get there, the key departure points on the way, the key turn-offs, and it makes you much more comfortable about arriving safely at your destination. So the signposting in an academic essay is in effect the SatNav screen on the left of this slide. It shows the reader where you're going, and that's key. You may know where you're going in an essay or dissertation, but you need to be telling the reader where you're going so that you're explaining and orientating the reader to your direction of travel. The signposting then works at strategic points in an essay, and we will come back to those in a moment. The signposting operates particularly sharply at strategic points in an essay, in a bit like the SatNav may say, turn off the motorway onto the A427. The signposting in an essay is performing exactly that function. It's telling you when there's a switch of topic. It's telling you where there's a change of emphasis. It's telling you what it is about the material you've included that helps you make a particular point. And of course, the summary signposting, we'll come back to types of signposting in a moment, tells the reader when the journey is ended, and then that should, as a whole, have provided the reader with a very clear direction of travel throughout. So having looked at why we signpost by way of providing a SatNav for your reader through your writing, it's worth ending with this reflection from the University of Hull's superb guide to academic writing. It says that signposting words and phrases are essential elements of academic writing. They make your writing flow. By making explicit how points are connected to each other, you make it easier for your reader to follow your arguments. Now, there are 2 points on this. First of all, that restates the case I've already made, and you can see how all academics are agreed that signposting is very, very important to the process of academic writing. Now, if you need any more convincing, look at the assessment criteria for all the different pieces of work you'll submit on your degree, whether it's at undergraduate level, postgraduate level, masters, PhDs, the whole lot. All of them, in some ways, in some form, will talk about things like the clarity of academic writing, the flow, the structure, and the argument are all part of this, because signposting is all about that. So the fact, even if you don't want to signpost or don't signpost effectively, the fact is, the better your signposting, the much more likely you are to achieve marks nearer the top of the spectrum, because to get a first class mark at undergrad level or a merit pass at master's level, you'll need to be using signpost effectively. A caution about all of what I'm saying today and in these bite-sized lectures: no piece of academic writing is perfect. Certainly my own wasn't perfect. However, with good, effective signposting, you can give yourself the very best chance of maximising the marks you can get for the research you can conduct in the limited time available. Okay, so having reflected on why it's important to signpost and the role that signposts play in academic writing, let's now turn to how to signpost. I begin this section with a reflection on my own experiences as a marker for 20 years in higher education in the UK. One of the most common criticisms of academic essays by markers is that the structure either isn't there or isn't clear enough, or it loses its way. And students sometimes mistake this criticism of their writing as if the lecturer is saying they don't have a structure. It's often the case, particularly in essays which score in the UK sector around a 2-2 at undergraduate level, that there is a form of structure, and even 2-1 essays will have a strongish structure. but it's that signposting directing the reader through the logic of the structure, which is what elevates marks towards the first class and the top end of the mark spectrum at postgraduate level. So the lack of a structure can often be addressed, and that accusation headed off at the pass by using the three main types of signposting. The key one at the start of the essays in particular is overview signposting, an overview of where you propose to go in the essay. So the very grand strategic, big picture explanation of where you go in the essay and what you argue. So you're signposting your argument, you're signposting your overall structure. Part one of the essay goes here, part two of the essay goes here. And you can also use overview signposting at the beginning of subsections of an essay. So this is one of your strategic points in an essay. What you want to do is tell us at the start of each section how that section is organised. And what you can see, therefore, is that the signposting operates at different points in an essay and at different levels. Early in the essay, it's about where the entire essay is going. Later in the essay, it's about where discrete sections are headed, so the reader knows what to expect. The second kind of signposting is the reverse in terms of placing. It's summary signposting. Summary signposting will be heavily appearing in your conclusions and also at the end of sections at the transition between strategic points in an essay, i.e. at the break between sections. Remind the reader where you've just gone and point the reader to where you're going next. Navigation signposting, on the other hand, is something which is sprinkled throughout an essay. That's the signposting which helps you break down the writing at the very micro level, sometimes at the paragraph level. And what we'll do now in the lecture is have a look at an example from my own writing in an article on Global Britain, which helps you show how the three different types of signposting can be used at strategic points in essays to keep the reader on the straight and narrow and provide a very clear, very firm direction for your writing. Okay, so this slide gives you the extract of one of the early 2 pages from my article on Global Britain, and just to give you a sense of what the article's about and how I was approaching it, I wanted to ask what the Conservative government's post-Brexit role in the world for Britain was said to be, and they'd encapsulated it in this soundbite Global Britain. So in this article I was trying to look at their the language that they use and the steps they've taken to enact the policy to try to work out what the policy was aiming to achieve and how they try to justify and sell it to global and domestic audiences. Okay, so the content of the article is broadly that. At this point in the article, what I've done is provide all of my overview signposting. So I've introduced the article, I've done all the things you'd expect in an academic article. I've told you why this topic is important. I've set out my structure and I've delivered my overall argument. So the overview signposting for the article as a whole is in place. What I've done secondly is the literature review. So I've got about 1.5 pages where I review the kinds of fields of discussion I'm engaging with, work on British foreign policy, on ideas in British foreign policy and so on. And as you'll see in that top highlighted passage there, I end the lit review with a transition to my methods section, and I say, before reporting the findings, i.e. before I discuss the content of my findings, it is important to explain the discourse method to select and interpreting the text data. So what that signpost does is use SatNav type guidance to say to the reader, you will later on in the piece get to read all my findings. However, before I do that, I need to tell you how I researched this. That increases the scientific basis of the article and shows people if they wanted to, they could go to check my sources and assess whether I've made a fair account of the different types of speeches and documents that I've used. So the signposting there is immediately to the next section. Notice, and this is where the connections, the connecting lines that I've added to the document come into play. Look at the consistency of language. I've used the word method and then straight away highlighted the next section, method. That is classic overview signposting. That in effect is your loud voice command on the SatNav going, hey folks, I'm not just using a structure, this is my structure, and I'm going to hit you around the face with this structure like a wet fish to the cheeks. So I go from lit review to method. I signpost the method in two places immediately, one after the other, so no one's in any doubt as to where we're going. I also then discuss how I'm going to study selectivity and how I interpret the data. And you'll notice how those two words, even though they're synonyms, they basically reappear below 3 lines later. So I say, to inform its research design, this article adapted from John Todd's method for interpreting British European policy discourse. So I've rooted my work in an existing framework, and I say that his work results in, and the highlighted passage here, a 2-step approach to identifying and analysing. So we have the overview signpost. I'm going to be talking about how I select and interpret the data. I then remind the reader of that in the use of identifying and analysing my primary sources. And these connections go right down through this short passage, and you'll see how we do this below. So far on the slide, we've had overview signposting. We've had the detailed navigation signposting, which gets you into the weeds of where that section is going to be organised to advance the argument and make my case. I then reiterate this by breaking this section down in turn into 2 subsections, signposted using the exact same type of phraseology I've previously used. We're looking at selecting in data, identifying the data, and therefore I've called step 1 which texts. That speaks directly to the concepts of selecting and identifying, but without the repetition that the use of exactly the same word would do. So the section subheaders can be useful in essays, whether you write to 1 level of heading or 2. Sections subheaders like this can be really useful in providing more of that SatNav voice command that you'll hear when they're wanting you to turn off onto a particular road off a motorway, for example. You'll also see that in step 1, when I start to discuss which text have I used to unpack Global Britain, I use navigation signposting. So we're now at number 4 on the right of this slide. Navigation signposting pointing the reader back. Now, SatNavs don't always do this, but academic writing does. That might be one of the key differences. With navigation signposting pointing back, what it's doing is saying, I've already discussed the confusion surrounding Global Britain, and in fact that's the point of the article. I don't need to recap what that confusion is because I've covered it above. It may be that I was going to cover it below, so I could do some overview or navigation signposting. However, the fact I've covered the confusion around Global Britain means I can point the reader back, and it shows the reader how straight the line is through my article. Look at the straightness of the arrow on the right side. That's the visual, that's the mental picture you're trying to generate in the reader through your writing, not a wavy line or a line that points in all sorts of different directions like a compass spinning. You're looking at a straight line. So I've also shown the reader that I know where I've come from in this piece of work. So in step 1, there's a navigation signpost with some navigation signposting back to where we've been. And what I do at the end of step 1, before moving to step 2, is some navigation signposting where I say, there's more to be written on this. And I say in that line at the end of that section, that subsection, a full analysis of think tanks and the production of Global Britain discourse will have to wait for another day. Now, what's key there is that I'm bracketing out what I don't plan to cover. I'm showing you the directions and roads on the SatNav to the right and left of our journey. but I'm not going to take those routes because we don't have time. So that kind of navigation signposting, I'll often talk in my tutoring with students about bracketing out what you're not doing, can be really useful as a way of signposting what you are doing. So that navigation signposting can come in there. And what I then do finally is in that section, I have the subsection on reading, analysing and reporting the data. So how I interpreted the data, how I've reported it, and in this case I use a thematic discourse analysis. That all gets unpacked in step 2. The key there is really, again, navigation signposting. I reuse the word analyse because I haven't used it for several lines now. I thought that by using the word analysing there, it would conjure memories of me using it above, and again, stress the fact that I have a direct line between the literature I've included at the start of this section and the writing I'm doing now. So the use of the word analysing reinforces, it's what the stand-up comedians refer to in their work as a callback. A good stand-up comedian will often do one joke and then 10 minutes later do a joke that calls back to that previous joke, and it makes the second joke all the funnier, and that's the context. In a sense, that's what you're doing here. So that use of repetition, politicians also do it very well. The use of repetition there is strategic to conjure memories of me talking about what I'm doing in the section from earlier. Okay, so this slide gives you a sense of overview signposting, navigation signposting, use of section headers, use of section subheaders. It gives you a sense of how academics use synonyms and precise language to maintain the impression, and in this sense, I hope, the actuality, that we're on a straight path which I can navigate for you through some very, very complex material. So hopefully by the end of this section of the article, readers aren't lost or wondering why on earth I included this material. I've justified it to my best ability. If readers disagree with my approach, that's fine, but they can't challenge the logic on which my article has unfolded. The only type of signpost we haven't looked at here is summary signposting, and of course that features at the ends of particular sections and at the end of the article as a whole in the conclusion. But you can see, if you read the article as a whole, there is all sorts of summary signposting that you can do to remind the reader of where you've been going. Key in your own work then is, and here's an exercise, could you in your own work highlight the signposting at strategic points like this? If you can't highlight any signposting, you need to include it. If you can highlight a little bit of signposting, and of course you're working within word limits, could you do more, or do you need more to help keep the reader on the straight and narrow, as it were? And if you do want to include more signposting, how do you do it effectively? How do you use the detailed and all of the options available to you in this brilliant English language of ours? How do you use keywords, section headers, key sentences, key ideas? How do you signpost them to keep that straight line from the start of the article through to the finish? And if you try this exercise on your own writing and start to weave in this volume of signposting, including overview signposting, navigation signposting, and later summary signposting, the quality of your academic writing will rise immeasurably. And the best news is it doesn't involve any extra detailed academic reading. It requires attention to the detailed ways in which you help the reader through your essay with good SatNav type signposting. To draw this lecture to a close, what we've done is have a look at why signposting matters, what it is, and how to do it. And the practical example that I've just given you is one way to start to think about including effective signposting in your own academic writing. There are 5 brief points by way of wrapping this up. The first is that signposting is essential to the flow of the essay. The signposts help guide the reader through the logic underpinning the argument you wish to make, particularly in longer pieces of writing, but equally in shorter ones in their own way. We need signposting to keep us with you and keep us on board in terms of understanding where your essay goes. So secondly, signposts help show your essay's direction. What is it you are building towards? It's the signposts that tell us. Without those signposts, the essay becomes nothing more really than a shopping list of potentially relevant points, but not points which are held together in a clear direction. So thirdly, the signposts help keep us with you on your journey. If your SatNav halfway through a journey suddenly decides to switch countries or motorways without telling you, you'll be disoriented. You may think your SatNav is broken and you probably won't complete your journey as safely and in the time you wish. So the role of signposting in an essay is to act as that detailed SatNav which gives you the specific road you're on, as well as a sense of the bigger picture of the state of your journey and when you intend to arrive at your destination. We looked as well, fourthly, at the three main types of signposting: overview signposting, navigation signposting, and summary signposting. I introduced one or two techniques for implementing these types of signposts. However, there are many others, and these are for you to follow up on and to have a think about, particularly at strategic points in your essay. Are you signposting enough? And as if you don't need motivation enough to include more signposting in your writing, there is a very simple final take-home point here. If a marker loses the direction of your essay, or you lose the marker, leave them behind, as it were, on the road, you will lose marks. The very best essays at undergrad and postgrad level globally have very clear signposting, a very clear direction, and a very firm direction of travel, which helps the reader follow you through the logic of your position and why you take it in an essay. Good luck. I hope you enjoyed this lecture and found it useful. If you want further help, you can contact me direct on LinkedIn. I also work across a range of leading online tutor sites for university students, including Spires, Tutorful, Superprof and TutorHunt. Feel free to shop around and you can contact me through any of those websites as well. In my online sessions with you, I'll be developing the kinds of writing skills I've talked about today, along with a range of other advice and guidance to help see you through all sorts of university projects, essays, dissertations and so on. I work right across the field of the social sciences and even beyond, so feel free to look me up and contact me, and I'll give you the very best help and support I can to succeed at your university studies.